Hello everyone, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts discussion, number 422, Tesla turret. I'm Exterminator, and thank you so much for joining me today. And finally, we get the reveal of a new turret, the Tesla turret. I did wonder when this was going to happen. We haven't really been shown much combat-related stuff. We were given the rocket turret a little while ago, which is super cool, but I think the main purpose of that was for space use, although I think it definitely will be great on planets as well. But we did actually see like a little hint of this in the announcement for the release date. If you remember that one or saw my video, they showed like a space platform with like belts going around of items on them, and the Tesla turret was one on there. And I think that was like pretty much the general guess everyone made, including myself, that it was some sort of electrical Tesla turret, and that is exactly what it was. So we're going to start off here with Arendelle going into it. So on Fulgora, makes sense, is where you unlock it. On Fulgora, you learn to control lightning, turning it from a threat into electricity. After learning to make more advanced electrical components and matching the planet's electromagnetic science pack, you are ready for the next stages, converting electricity back into lightning and unlocking the Tesla turret. And they give us a demonstration here, and this just looks and sounds absolutely amazing. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Okay, sorry if that was like a little bit loud at first. It was hard to gauge how loud it was going to be. But this sounds and looks absolutely fantastic. And the little details here are really great. There's a few things I noticed. I didn't notice it initially when I read this because I read it on my phone, but you can see like the two battery capsules inserted in here is what I assume that is, or some sort of like small like reactor thing or something for this. And then you see this, and I think it could just be completely visual. You saw this sticking up, but it may actually directly indicate to when it is able to fire. I'm actually kind of curious now. I want to watch this one more time, or at least part of it. Yeah, so you can see it decreases and then goes back up. So you can even visually see, which is super neat, I think, with that. The detail here, the graphics are by Yaroslav, or I think. I'm probably saying that wrong. I apologize. And sound effects by Ian. All of it is absolutely fantastic. So this has some really unique principles, right? So an electric turret, like the laser turret, while the laser turret only takes up 2x2, the Tesla is 4x4, right? And is much more powerful, but also way more power hungry. Not only does it take more power per shot, it also just has a significantly higher passive power draw. In addition to that, they made the laser turret passive power draw actually less, like they reduced it from what it currently is 1.1 to kind of just make the difference between the two even greater, because this is a huge step up. And as you're already noticing from down here, it has some special effects. So it's not just simply a Tesla coil, it's more like a compact particle accelerator that fires a proton or ion beam. Once a primary beam hits a target, they are strongly positively charged, causing secondary arcs of lightning that can chain to nearby enemies. So the chain lightning effects make the Tesla turret much better against groups, right? And then in addition to that, it does decent damage. It does 60 electric damage per second, but damage comparisons are difficult because, obviously different enemies have different resistances to different types of damage. So, electric is pretty dang good. Most enemies don't really have much of an electric resistance, at least in 1.1. I'm sure some will in 2.0, but, just because it is only 60, it can still do a lot of damage. And then, of course, it's affected by damage upgrades. And also, it has some bonuses from quality as well, right? So, the lightning can jump to secondary targets 10 times in a chain, and they all take the full damage, which is really strong. Usually, in situations like this, in other games, for multi-jumping effects of damage, it's usually reduced. But the fact that it's full damage to every target is extremely powerful here. And also higher qualities gives the turret more range. So the range base is 30, but with legendary quality turrets it can get up to 45. In addition to that, which I think is potentially even better, is the Tesla turret uh, higher quality also increases the chance for the secondary chain lightning to fork and hit additional targets. So the base fork chance per jump is 5%, increases to 30% if legendary. So this can not only increase the range having a higher quality of it, but it also can just make the crowd control significantly better. And then if that weren't already enough, this has a kind of side effect as well of actually crowd controlling and stunning and slowing enemies. So it halts their movements, zapping them back a small amount as well, and then yeah, slowing them for a short period of time once the stun wears off. So this is kind of like the discharge defense, but in turret form. And if you've used that recently, it's actually really good. The discharge defense, for the longest time in Factorio's history, used to actually be horrible, like just not even worth building or researching ever. But I recently used it in my latest stream playthrough, and I was really surprised how good it is. I think they did buff it at some point, but basically the knockback effect and the stun effect of that is what makes it really good, and that's now being applied to this turret, and obviously higher damage and higher range. So definitely don't underestimate that effect. It's extremely powerful. And it is great for working in with other turrets, right? Because you can combine this with like flamethrowers or rocket turrets, and if the enemies are like stunned and slowed, then your AoE stuff can do even more damage in addition to the AoE this does. So this is going to just be fantastic for crowd control. It's more expensive and must be made on Fulgora, so for a while at least you can't use it everywhere. The synergy with other turrets means that there's still a good incentive to include a few Tesla turrets to back up key locations. It says artillery forts are great early use case because it's an area you know you will be attacked, and you only need a new Tesla turret to make a big difference. Um, so it's interesting. So they say for a while at least you can't use it everywhere. So I'm wondering, like, it's made on Fulgora, but my impression was that there's not going to be enemies on Fulgora, but maybe there is. I mean, it makes sense to unlock it there. It wouldn't make sense to unlock it anywhere else. But I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess it could still be the case that you unlock it there and just don't use it there. Because I still really don't think there's going to be enemies on that planet. But moving on, we also get a handheld version, which is pretty cool. So it requires ammo, but otherwise functions in a similar way to the Tesla turret you can see here. So I guess this would be even more akin to the discharge defense since it's like a personal weapon. It's geared more towards crowd control than other handhelds, but it does a little less damage compared to the Tesla turret. It can chain for longer and has higher forking chance, which is pretty great. I mean, you can see these are big biters, right? You can see the damage this is doing, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, so it says may not do as much damage, but the extra bounds make it easier for a single gun to control a group of enemies, and this is ideal for like keeping a safe distance, right? Then we move into game design by Arundel as well. So there is a Tesla gun in his space exploration mod, which is one of the most popular weapons because it's so fun to use. And I think that'll definitely transition to 2.0 here as well. And Arundel always wanted to make a turret version, but there was never a practical way to do it. In the mod, a handheld version is fine because only a few people would use it at once in multiplayer. If you have more than 50 turrets using the same effect, then you quickly see it slowing down the game because the mod would need to search for enemies with Lewis script for every bounce, and it's a slow process. While I was making first gameplay prototype for Space Age, it was a throw things at the wall and see what sticks type of sort of time. We knew we were adding an I was about to say right electromagnetism themed planet to the game, so a Tesla turret was a perfect fit. I added a Tesla turret that could be unlocked on the planet, but again, the old problem of engine support for features that don't exist yet was an issue at the start. It just had to be a turret that shot destroyer robot electric beam, but of course there was a plan for it to do much more. But unlike the rocket turret, which obviously fires rockets, the Tesla turret is more or less a clean slate, right? We don't really have anything like this if you want to use a different beam than the destroyer capsules. A short shock stun like effect is a nice pairing with electrical damage, so that was added as one of the main non-damage features. Visually, it didn't look very impactful though. The enemy just passes for a moment. Then I tried or pauses for a moment, sorry. Then I tried adding a small pushback effect, and that made all the difference. By changing their position slightly, it looks like they jump or twitch from electricity, which is perfect. Mechanically, it's a nice combination with the stun by hindering their movement. So this is concept art. This is earlier versions, like pre-version 1. It does look very similar to the beacon. I mean, when I saw this, the first thing that I thought of was that it looked like it uses the base of the beacon, kind of, which is kind of what they were going for as we look farther down here. I am going to start summarizing a little because there's a lot here. We'll be here for an hour if I read everything verbatim. But basically, the general requirements that, or, things they want to follow were the overall structure should be vaguely reminiscent in shape to a nostalgic Tesla defense from something like Command and Conquer, but it can't be too similar, of course. Between the old beacon design, new beacon design, there was a intermediate version shown here. The design didn't work out well for a beacon because it was too visually dominant over other things. But as multiple people pointed out when that was shown, it did look kind of like a Tesla turret, so that was kind of a good thing to generally base this off of. And it was important that the turret didn't look too close to the current beacon, of course, and then it needs to convey high voltage and an electrical effect, but it isn't actually an omnidirectional Tesla coil, it's a proton beam on a rotating turret. This means that it needs a front face, and the face needs to rotate before it can attack, like all turrets. It should show some relation to the laser turret to suggest it's part of the same family, but shouldn't look like a scaled up laser turret. They need some revisions because not all of them agreed on it. This is concept art version 1 testing that it works with different player colors, which is awesome. My favorite is definitely the red one. The final design ended up being version 3. The main intention behind the design changes from 1 to 3 were that cover up the hole a bit more, remove the electric fence around the hole, have the diagonal supports like the laser turret. Everything is connected though, so in the end, only the head ended up staying the same. So this is kind of what it looks like. I'm gonna be honest, I actually kind of like the fence thing around it. All the other changes I really like. I kind of wish they'd kept this. I mean, but that's such a minor thing; it really doesn't matter. But yeah, overall, and then they did add like this back here, which I do really like. I mentioned that earlier, so I'm glad they made that addition. But yeah, this is really nice looking. And you can see the difference, of course. So the final design has a hint of nostalgia for the retro futuristic look, but not too much. A hint of Beacon version 2's face, so on. And then this is the line art. Man, between this and the fusion power from last Friday Facts, I really just want a whole line. I like myself, and I'm sure many others would pay for a line art DLC, like art pack for Factorio if they just had line art version. Like, this looks so good. This is definitely like Borderlands style, right? This looks really really cool. I'm not saying I would necessarily like it instead of what we have, but man, I would certainly be willing to pay for some sort of like art pack for Factorio if they released line art versions of stuff. And then the last part of the design was the electrical beam itself, and the robot beam is okay for a short distance, but doesn't work so well for a long time. The Tesla turret deserves an effect with more punch, but also it's useful for a number of reasons to be able to differentiate the primary proton beam from the secondary bounces. The primary beam is brighter and has a straight laser-like core and electrical arcing on fringes, whereas the second bounces don't have the secondary straight line and are just electrical arcs. And then we go into the graphics. Now, this is extremely long. I'm going to kind of just do one summary for the whole thing. I do not at all want to discredit, like, how good this is by Yaroslav, but again, just because of the form I do this in, I can't read everything word for word because we would be here forever. So I'm going to stop blabbing on that, and yeah, just definitely check this out. If you're interested, it is a good read. It really is. So if you're interested in this stuff, definitely give it a read. But my summary for this, they do, there is some like visual stuff here we can kind of look at the like through the process. So segment, offset, overlap here. This is kind of what it starts to look like, right? Which, I mean, I think already looks pretty dang cool. And then this is really interesting. So this, I think, was actually used for the arcing. It's kind of like, I think they call it like an insanity drivers or something for like things just bouncing around like crazy. And this is for the arcing effect. And we can kind of see more process of it down here. This is more the final version, but my like overall summary of this basically is it was a very complex task, right? So it features the electrical arcs, which move around the base when firing or idle, which are straightforward to implement. However, the scalable and realistic electric beam for targeting was super challenging. Initially using a simple repeating beam animation, the team encountered issues with unnatural repetition and structured chaos, and it was improved. And they improved the beam by doubling arc segment lengths and randomizing animation offsets, creating a more natural look. And then the system involved a simple ribbon shape displaced by random maps with hooks for adjustment. To add violent jumps typical of electric arcs, insanity drivers were introduced using rotating objects to create chaotic movement, which is this. And then this effect combined with manually adjusted hooks produced a desired effect. Additionally, additional enhancements included narrowing the ribbon to simulate arcs tearing away from the beam and using backface culling for smaller lightning effects. Don't really understand all of that, but we can kind of like see some of that happening here. And then lastly, secondary arcs were added to enhance directionality. Lastly, lightning forks were manually animated for complexity, and workspace automation was used to manage the numerous moving elements. The final result was a dynamic, aggressive beam suitable for the Tesla turret with additional special effects and post-processing completing the project, which we get the final result. This is like crazy to look at. I mean, I can't imagine having to actually make this. This looks so complicated. But man, the end result is absolutely fantastic. So, then we put it all together in game, and well, I hope you enjoyed the possibility for throwing a sick rave party, right? This is awesome. Biter's trying to sneak into the club. Yeah, I love also the lights. The red, I mean, that's obviously intentional, but it looks great. And it's even arcing to bases. Now, one thing I noticed is it does not damage the bases, which I do find kind of odd because, well, actually, no, it does. I guess they just don't have health on. Okay, my bad. Yeah, it does damage base. I was like, I don't know why it doesn't, but also. I'm gonna kind of zoom in here. Is it just me, or is this like a new like remnant effect for the bases? Did they always look like this when they died? Do they look like this now? I don't pay enough attention, honestly. I just run through and blow them up. I don't even I don't even look. I feel like this is like a revamped look for the dead bases. Let me know if is that true, or am I just crazy and I haven't actually looked at it close enough in recent enough times to realize this is how it's been. But yeah, overall, this is really exciting. I'm sure we're going to get even more weapons and stuff, but you can see also how large it is. I mean, this is the radar, and this is the big electric pole. I mean, this thing is like huge, right? Uh, but yeah, this is really exciting. I think it's going to be super fun. My guess is that it's going to be needed for like maybe on Gleba, the planet that's like alive. Maybe there's like swarms of enemies, like a bunch of little enemies, or on one of the other planets. And this is where this is going to be extremely helpful. It's for those like huge hordes of enemies. And then Arendel's conclusion is depending on the order you visit the new planets and how much you rush to the end. The Tesla turret is one of the things that you might never use or still, and so complete space age. But with our focus on removing things that aren't necessary, it could have been removed from the game, but it wasn't. Stuck around because it does have a clear role. It's always useful for the rest of the game if you make use of it, and especially useful if Fulgora is your first planet. Mainly though, it's still here because it's just so damn cool. I mean, yeah, like man, they couldn't remove it at this point. That would be such a waste. And I mean, honestly, it's quite possible that Fulgora would be, the first planet. I kind of think for me, Volcanus will be my first planet because you get the big mining drill and like basically the upgraded smelter and the foundry. But it is possible that Fulgora could be first planet, and if not, then definitely the second planet. So that I definitely still think this is going to be really useful. I don't. I mean, honestly, I can see this replacing lasers almost. It's maybe less damage, but the AoE effects are really good. I can see myself maybe just using this instead of lasers once I get them and have the power, of course. But that's going to do it for this one, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and are excited as I am for this. If you are, definitely drop a like on the video. If you are excited to zap things into oblivion here. And leave your thoughts below. As always, too, I would love to hear what you think on this. You know, any theories you have, if there's anything I missed or anything else. I always love reading all of your thoughts in the comments. And if you are new and haven't subscribed yet, definitely feel free to keep up with all future content. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.